Hi, everybody. This is Rosemary Coates in Silicon Valley. I'm your host for this edition of the Frictionless Supply Chain podcast. I'm the executive director of the Reshoring Institute, where we help companies evaluate their manufacturing on a global basis and hopefully bring some manufacturing back to the U.S. I am also a contributing writer to Supply Chain Management Review. Today, I am joined by Lisa Nemer, the Vice President of Finance and Operations at Intermart, doing business as Shipping Solutions. And what we intend to accomplish today is a little bit different from what we normally do. We're going to be talking about shipping documentation today. And although that may not sound so exciting, it is essential. And so you need to have an understanding of what all is involved with respect to documenting international shipments, how you report that to the government, and how important it is to keeping us safe in the world. We spend a lot of time talking about these big ideas, but I think it's really essential, as I said, to learn about the actual execution and document shipments. So let's get started. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became involved in international shipping documentation?
Well, I started my career in finance. I worked for big corporations here in Minneapolis. And then about 20 years ago, I joined my husband in a small business that he'd put together to do export documentation. Actually, he started it as an exporting company. He was working with some people in Japan, and he was trying to export things to Japan, and they found out there really wasn't any good software to use to do the paperwork. And so one of the guys who worked for him threw a little software program together to do it. And then the freight forwarder said, "Where'd you get these documents? They're great." And so they decided to ditch the exporting piece and just work on the software, and has been building on it about 25 years now. And I've been here almost 20 years.
Ah, very good. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about Shipping Solutions. What do you do?
Well, our main program, we have we call it an export documentation and compliance program. So it helps you to create dozens of different export forms. It also helps you to file with AES, so you can upload your information directly to AES, so you don't have to retype it. And it also does some screenings. So you can screen your shipments against the government's restricted parties list. You can screen it against the EAR to see if you need an export license. And then you can also kind of keep a little export compliance program built into Shipping Solutions, so that if you are ever audited, you can show the government, well, we follow these steps as our export compliance program, and this is who did it, and these are the dates we did it. So you can do all of that.
Really important. That's right.
Yes.
The government comes knocking, you better be able to demonstrate how you carefully adhered to the laws, right?
Yes.
So Shipping Solution focuses more on small and medium-sized businesses and supplemental documentation for large businesses. And that's a little bit different from what we normally talk to people that are in large corporations and so forth. So there are, thousands and thousands of small businesses out there that need this kind of help and need to understand what documents are required and why they're required. So, why would you use a program like this instead of just downloading stuff from the government website?
Well, you're right about small and medium-sized companies. Actually, 97% of exporters are small and medium-sized companies, which is kind of surprising, but yeah. And we always, it's nice, you keep all your documents together. We've got the templates, we keep them up to date. And also you can store your products and your customers in our software, and then just point and click to create the shipment. If you are shipping again to that same customer, you can make a copy of the shipment and just change the quantities. And I don't think there's not like a comprehensive group of templates that the government has that you can use. Right. So you would be finding one document here and one document there. We talk to a lot of people who have Excel templates, and they that's a lot of work to keep those up. They're error prone. When you create a shipment in Shipping Solutions, you're putting the information in one time and then it's completing all the documents. So that you're going to have the same name and address and products and quantities on all the documents. And that's important too, like with letters of credit, a lot of times banks are very picky and they want the documents to be perfect and match. So our software just helps exporters work faster, more efficiently, and more accurately.
Yeah, that's really important. Instead of retyping the stuff over and over and over again, that strikes fear in my heart when my kids were little, and they'd come home on the first day of school with 20 papers, and you had to write in your name and address on every single one of them. It's such a waste of time and so inefficient. So with Shipping Solutions, you can input the information one time, and then it populates across all the documents you need, right?
Yes, and you can
Wow.
also connect it with your ERP system if you want to, and pull that order in from your ERP system so that, you're really minimizing even more errors. You're getting exactly the order the way it was entered in your order entry system right into to do the paperwork for the export.
That's terrific. So, and you also do AES filing. The software does AES filing, right? So tell us about what is AES and how you go about filing for it.
Okay. Yeah. And we actually have a really great white paper that goes through all of this on our website, shippingsolutions.com. We have tons of free resources, but AES is the automated export system. It's run by the Census Bureau, which is part of Customs and Border Protection. They want all exports that are over $2,500 by Schedule B number to be reported to them. Unless it's going to Canada, there are some exceptions and things. And there are exceptions. So like, even if you're shipping to Canada, but your item needs an export license, then you still need a file. So there's some rules, but generally it's items $2,500 or more by Schedule B number. So that's
Let me
how
interrupt. Let me interrupt for a moment. So just for clarification, so some people may not know, the Schedule B are the original export numbers from the United States, but they also can be linked to an HTS number, a harmonized tariff schedule number, right? So you can use an HTS number to export as well, or as an alternate, a Schedule B number.
Correct, you can, and they're the same through the first 6 digits. I think the HTS might be a little more detailed than the Schedule B. So if you're just exporting, you might want to go with Schedule B because there may be a little bit simpler. But yeah, so AES wants you to divide things up. They only want to know about things $2,500 or more by Schedule B code or HTS code. And then you have to file now through the ACE portal. So we have a direct connection through our software into the ACE portal so that you can do your filing.
Okay, so you can't do just mail-in forms anymore. It has to be electronic. Yeah.
They used to be able to do the forms, but now it's all electronic. Yes.
Oh yeah. I remember back in the day typing up the forms for export. So it's simpler in a way, but also more complicated if you're not used to using a system like that, and how you input the information. There's a structure and so forth, right?
And of course, the logins, that's always a nightmare because it expires if you don't use it, and you got to call them to reset it. And yeah, you're dealing with it's a little bit of a system, but at least if you use Shipping Solutions, you don't have to retype that information, and you can always call and we'll help you as well.
That's terrific. So that kind of help is really valuable when you're stuck in a situation, you're trying to get a shipment out, and something goes wrong, you don't know what to do. That's really helpful to know that they can pick up the phone and call you guys.
Yeah, customer service is one of the things that we really value here at Shipping Solutions. So we try to help out when we can.
That's terrific. What's restricted party screening, and why is it required for exporting from the US?
Well, actually, doing the screening is not required, but if you ship to someone on one of those lists, then you can face penalties. So you really should do the screening. And the government has probably several dozen different lists of people and companies that you can't do business with if you're a US exporter. So we have that built into our software that you can run that screening right from the software. And not only do we include US lists, but we have lists from other countries around the world because they have their own lists as well. So you put in the name and address and click the button, and then it comes back with results. It'll give you a percentage match because of course there could be misspellings, there could be typos, whatever. So it tells you approximately how close the match is. Now, if you put in like a name like Vladimir Putin, you're going to get 100% matches. But if you put in a different name, you might get a 96% match or an 80% match. And so what I always tell people is you have to make a business decision of what percentage is high enough that you're going to do further research to make sure that this is not your customer. And there are different ways to do that. So you can, look into more details on the government sites, or you can talk to your customer, things like that.
So I remember pre 9/11, we had big books that we used to look through and try to see if there was anybody on that list. And we got a new book. We had to subscribe to it every few months, I think, or maybe once a year. A list of people we couldn't export to. So you had to look up the name in this big book. But then it's my understanding that after 9/11, that list ballooned to millions of people, and it was no longer, you were no longer capable of being able to just look up a name. You had to have the assistance of software or going to a government website and looking up the information there. And you mentioned that there are lists from other countries too. I understand that many of the countries around the world have their own lists, and they coordinate that with the US. And so everyone adheres to and honors the bad guys list, or the denied or restricted parties list, what we call it, the restricted parties list now, so that you're not doing business in another country and it's going to affect terrorism, that kind of thing.
Right. Well, and we do tell customers if it's a name on another country's list, you don't necessarily have to abide by that. But it's there for informational purposes. But also when people balk at that, having to do the screening, I do say this is part of your patriotic duty, because the point of it is so that things don't get into the wrong hands, like you said, a terrorist or, a government that's unfriendly. So it's an important thing to do. And sometimes companies don't realize that their items, have dual use purposes. So it might seem like it's an innocent consumer item, but it can be reconfigured for military or terrorist use. So you have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, so there's basically two things that you're looking at when you're trying to export a shipment. One is it on one of the lists? So how do you classify it, right, for export through Commerce or Department of State? So EAR, I'm sorry, EAR or ITAR. So one of those lists, and then also the denied persons list or the restricted parties list. It's called different things. So you have to classify it and then figure out if you're shipping to someone that is on the list that you can't ship to, right?
Right. And you have to classify it, like to get that HTS code or Schedule B code that we talked about. But then also you need to check to see if it has an ECCN. Because that's going to be an item that does possibly require an export license.
There are so many acronyms in international shipping. So we've talked about AES, which is the automated
export system.
And that's for reporting your export, right?
Right.
There is EAR, which is the commerce list of denied parties. Or
no, the EAR is actually the Export Administration Regulations.
Right. Oh.
So it is commerce, but those are, the rules and regulations. I suppose maybe the entity lists and things are part of that. And
okay. So so let's go again. So there's the AES, automated export system, where you have to report your exports. There's the EAR, which is the way you classify your goods with for restrictions and license requirements, right?
Right, right.
There's ITAR, which is the Department of Defense. That's a whole another level of security and requirements. And then there is the restricted parties list around the world.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
all these different acronyms and names, and
Right.
it's far more
It's a
complicated than
lot.
people think.
And that's why, yeah, for sure. Like I'll get calls from people who want to just export and they don't realize that it's such a complicated thing. And I do tell them that, they do need to be knowledgeable about US export regulations. But one thing that we've done, because we do work with smaller and medium-sized companies, is we have a whole bunch of blog posts, webinar, taped webinars, white papers. We have a lot of information available on our website. So we have hundreds of articles. You can go to our blog at shippingsolutions.com/blog, and you can sign up for our weekly newsletter. I think it comes out twice a week, full of articles that are help small and medium sized or anybody who's exporting learn more about the rules and regulations. We just launched a premium. It's called Passages Premium. So you do have to pay a little money, but you get extra stuff. Like we have a person who does a 10-minute international trade update every month. So it's like a little news program of what's happening in international trade, which I find really informative. We have deeper looks. So like if there's an article that we found really interesting, we'll call up the author and ask that if they want to do a deeper dive into the topic, and we'll record that for people. And then we also have Ask Me Anythings, where we'll bring in an expert from the government or industry, and then people can just ask questions, anything they have on that topic. So that's Passages Premium. But our free blog, shippingsolutions.com/blog, is free, and anyone can sign up, and it's just really useful because there is a lot to know, and so we try to help on that end as well.
So let's talk for a minute about all the documents that are required. So when you're exporting a shipment, you need a license, maybe if your commodity is licensable under EAR or ITAR, right?
Yeah, and that, of course, you need to find out long before you start preparing the paperwork for shipping. So, licenses are based on what the item is and where it's going. So if you're shipping it to Canada, there might not be any requirements for a license, but if you're shipping it to China, that could be a different story.
Sure.
So built into our software, there is an export license determination feature, and it looks at where you're going and what the HTS number is of the item, and it'll let you know if there's a license required, if there's any license exceptions, where to go to find out more. So you need to apply for that license way before you're going to be shipping the item. So
Okay.
you would put like a license number on the paperwork if you got that license.
What other documents are needed to export?
Well, you always need a commercial invoice, generally a packing list, sometimes a certificate of origin. The US has free trade agreements with lots of different countries. And so the biggest one is the USMCA, which is the replacement for NAFTA, of course. If you're in Canada, it's the CUSMA. If you're in Mexico, it's the TMEX, but it's the same agreement. Then we have them with, like Singapore, Australia, Japan, some of the Caribbean nations, Chile, Colombia. So we have all of those documents. So if you want to have your customer get lower tariffs, you can fill out those documents. There's also bills of lading, maybe dangerous goods documents. It just kind of depends on your item. So nobody's going to use all the documents that we have in our software, but we try to have all of them that someone might need.
Well, what's a certificate of origin and how do you get that?
Well, it basically just certifies where the items were made. And you
Okay.
need that for some of these free trade agreements, because then you get lower tariffs if it was made in the two countries that have the agreement or the group of countries. Sometimes you just provide one, even if there isn't a free trade agreement, you just provide one to say this is where the item was made. If you didn't make the item, you may have to go back to the manufacturer and get that certificate of origin. Or if you're the manufacturer, but not the exporter, you still might have to provide that to the company that is exporting your item. And sometimes they have to be certified by a chamber of commerce. And so we have a service for that as well. You know, a lot of companies might have to drive down the street to their local chamber and get it stamped by the chamber. Or we've even seen where chambers will sometimes hand out stamps to their members, which kind of makes it a silly process. But we have an agreement with the American World Trade Chamber of Commerce. And if you use Shipping Solutions, you can just upload your information right into their portal and get it chamberized by them. They'll even do legalization. There are some countries that you ship to that you have to have it legalized by the embassy. So they'll take care of that for a fee, of course. And you can also, we can provide that service even if you don't have our shipping solution software. So if you need certificates of origin on a regular basis, you can get them through us for $50 per certificate. You don't have to pay for the service at all. You just pay for the certificates that you need. And then if you need it legalized, it costs more. And then you can print them right out off your computer. If you want them shipped to you, then of course there's cost for shipping, but not most certificates of origin do not need to be chamberized. You can just provide it.
Okay, so mostly we've been talking about export documentation. And so far I wrote down that we've covered AES, Automated Export System, EAR, the Export Administration Regulations, which is the way you classify your goods for export, ITAR, which is for the International Traffic in Arms, right? I think this is funny. There's so many acronyms. HTS, which is the Harmonized Tariff Schedule, which it classifies, that's an agreement around the world with many countries. Most countries in the world are on the harmonized system, and it's a common way of classifying and describing goods. There's a CFO, which is the country of origin certificate. There's a Schedule B, which is an export documentation, and then an export declaration also, which is a controlling document. A bill of lading, oh my gosh, you know, it's so complicated. And on the import side, there are additional documents that you need, right?
Right. Our software doesn't really do importing. We have a few online tools for importers. And of course, like our classification tool that can be used whether you're importing or exporting. We usually recommend you work with a licensed customs broker for imports. We have asked customers who say, don't you have import documents? We ask them, what documents do you need for that? And then they never send them. So I'm not as well versed on the import side, but in our blog, we do have a lot of articles related to importing. So, you know, we do have connections with experts in the field who write for our blog on that side of it.
So I just happen to be a licensed customs broker also.
Oh, perfect.
I don't have my own firm, but I've been working in customs for a long time. So on the import side, you would need the broker to file what's called a 7501, which is a commercial entry document, and possibly some other associated documents. But you're taking and depending on the export documentation from the country of origin. So if somebody's shipping you something from Japan, for example, they would have to file their own export paperwork, and that would then be used to generate the import paperwork in the US. So it is, I hope we have nailed the idea that it's really complicated. And this is not something someone off the street can walk in and do as part of their shipping operations. You have to be trained. You have to know what documents are there. You have to understand all the lingo all the acronyms. And, it takes a long time to be efficient in this regard. It's really helpful to know there's software out there that's assisting in that process. So Lisa, any closing thoughts for us?
Well, I do want to mention one more thing that's coming up. May is World Trade Month. And
Yes.
we have we kind of manage the worldtrademonth.com website. And on there, you can find lots of different events and webinars and different things that will be happening. So it's May, it's the month of May, worldtrademonth.com. You can look for events you might want to attend. If you have events that you're holding during that month, we'd be happy to put them on our website. And you can also be a sponsor for free. And as long as you list our website on your website, you can be a sponsor of World Trade Month. So the theme this year is amid global tensions, resilience, and growth. And World Trade Month, you're talking about how complicated world trade is. And of course, that's like the oldest business in the world, right? Countries have been exchanging goods for centuries and taxing it. So actually, World Trade Month was first celebrated in 1927, and it was initiated by the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce. And then in 1935, FDR made it officially the third week of May, and then it became the whole month of May in 1938. So World Trade Month goes back quite a ways. So I hope I think one of the coolest things about our worldtrademonth.com website is we have a fact of the day every day in May. So it's a reason to go to the website, learn one interesting fact. It also comes out in our newsletter. So it's just something every morning to look at, after you've done your Wordle or whatever your morning thing is. May is World Trade Month. So worldtrademonth.com is where to go for that.
That's terrific. Thank you for that reminder. Really, really important and to celebrate world trade for sure. It used to be I've been doing global trade for 40 years, and it used to be people would ask me what I did, and I'd say supply chain management, and their eyes would sort of glaze over, and move away to some other conversation. But in today's environment, supply chain is headline news every day in the Wall Street Journal, and is top of mind with most people. And you provide a way of assisting in not only the understanding, but also in the execution of these global shipments. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for joining us today, Lisa. It was really interesting to talk to you, and I hope we had a chance to pass on some wisdom to people that are working in the international trades and what they need to do. Can you please give us your contact information if listeners want to get in touch with you?
Sure. Like I said, go to shippingsolutions.com, and that's where you can sign up for our blog and all that. But if you want to send an email to me, you can reach me at lisa.n@shipsolutions.com.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And you can listen to more Frictionless supply chain podcasts posted on Supply Chain Management Review's landing page, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can reach me, Rosemary Coates, and visit our website. My email is rcoates@reshoringinstitute.org, and visit our website at www.reshoringinstitute.org, where we publish all of our research on manufacturing in America. Thanks everyone for listening, and have a great day.